It is so good to be back in the United States. Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hitchhiking Yeti here. And today I'm going to share with you some of my latest adventures. I just recently returned back to the US from Germany for I was over there for about a week or so. Had a great time. Germany is such a cool place to go visit. A lot of good food. And yeah, man, we just had a great time. Really had a lot of fun. But today's video is not about being in Germany itself. It's about my travels to get from the United States to Germany and back. It wasn't all that smooth this time. Years past, we've always flown from like Charlotte to Munich to Nuremberg, which is our destination. That's where we always fly to. And we've always had great experiences flying with Lufthansa. During that flight, that itinerary, that flight path, everything's always really went well. But that all changed this time. And I'm going to tell you kind of how everything went. Kick back, get you some coffee, and get ready to listen to this crazy, crazy, crazy little story. All right, my friends, we have our coffee. Hope you have something to drink as you take all this craziness in. So this was a crazy flight experience that I'm going to share with you. I don't know if other people out there who flies international, have you guys ever been through anything like this anytime? I've never went through anything like this, but I'm not a frequent flyer or anything like that. I normally only fly maybe twice a year. You know, not all that often. Once to twice a year is about the most I ever fly. And international, only every few years when I go to Germany with my wife do we fly. But even for her, as much as she used to fly throughout her entire life, going back and forth to Germany and stuff, she said this is probably the worst experience she's ever had. So I know there's people who's been through worse. This is not a contest or anything like this. We're just sharing this information with you, what we just went through. So if somebody in the future, if you're flying, even with Lufthansa or whoever, you know, just be prepared to do certain things. And I think the best thing that we did in all this is our carry-on luggage. I gotta go ahead and start off with that. Always have a carry-on with a few changes of clothes in there, because you just never know when you check a bag, especially going international when there's changing planes and things like that, if it's going to actually make it. Just saying, that's just a good rule of thumb, and that really saved us on this trip. So to start everything off, I will tell you this: we normally fly out of Charlotte and fly to Munich, and from Munich to Nuremberg when we go to Germany to visit my wife's aunt. This time we got a little bit better deal, and we ended up flying out of Greensboro, and we flew from Greensboro, North Carolina to Newark, New Jersey, which is right outside of the New York City limit. I mean, it's just right there. You can see the skyline in the Newark Airport. And the flight from Greensboro to Newark was United, and it was an excellent flight. It was a great experience, and it was so much fun, and we really enjoyed the flight experience. We've always loved flying, and it was just great. Everything was on time. It was amazing. Once we arrived at Newark, we got some food, and then we decided, hey, you know, we got a little bit of time, but let's go ahead and start making our way over to the gate for Lufthansa and kind of hang out in that vicinity, you know, and just be close to your gate. It's always a very comforting feeling to go get you a chair and get a place to sit down and maybe mess around on your phone and just kind of be patient and wait on your flight, your boarding to be called. And that's what we did. So originally our boarding was around about 5:40 in the p.m. and then as we got closer to that 5:40 p.m. boarding, they started delaying the flight, and they delayed this flight numerous times. Okay, and then the last thing we heard, you know, it might be 7 o'clock or something like that, or 7:30, that we would hopefully be boarding and stuff. And then lo and behold, nothing happened. And then at 7:33 we got a text on our cell phones that said your flight has been canceled and you will be rebooked at no charge. And I'm thinking, do you really need to put no charge on there? I mean, you pay somebody money to take you from point A to point B and they cancel it. Yeah, you're going to rebook me. It ain't going to be no charge, you know. And but But anywho, just moving right along with this. So we ended up thinking like, golly, what we're going to do, and the announcements told us we had to go to baggage claim and get our bags. And then I'm like, then what? Like, we've been rebooked for like tomorrow, or are we going to later tonight? We don't know. There's nothing being said. It just says you will be rebooked at no charge. So we go down to baggage claim. I'll wait down there forever, probably 30 minutes or more, looking at every bag. You know how stressful that is, being in an airport, bunch of people around, everybody's doing the same thing, looking at bags. Oh, is that mine? And after 15 minutes goes by and you still ain't seen your bag, you start looking at everybody's bag like, I don't know, is that mine? You know, our bag is black with like a little green on it, like lime green, so it's kind of easy to pick out, and it never shows up. And then meantime, my wife's on her phone in the chat talking to Lufthansa about getting some answers of like where we're going and how we're getting there, and you know, are they going to put us up in a hotel tonight, things like that. And they ended up giving us two choices. They actually said you can either fly out tomorrow or you can fly out tonight to Munich, not Frankfurt, on a 9:25 flight. So we took that because that gets us out of the airport, that gets us to Germany a little bit quicker. So they got all that straightened out, and it would be like old times again to us, you know, flying into Munich and then going from Munich to Nuremberg. So I'm like, okay. I said, but the bad thing is I never found my bag, and they told my wife in the chat that, oh, it's already been checked through, your bag's moving to the new plane right now. So we was like, okay, that's a little weird. Like, you know, we just picked that like minutes ago, but yet it's already been checked through to the new plane. And right there was like the first time in where I was like, I ain't ever gonna see that bag again. You know, I was like, oh, it's so like, I'm not gonna see that bag again. So that was a little bit stressful right there. So now that we have our new flight and we're now flying to Munich, now all we got to do is get on the plane and fly, right? Well, that's exactly what happened. We ended up making it up there. They actually delayed that flight enough, so we was running through Newark Airport trying to make it to the gate because we was kind of cutting it close. And Newark is kind of a big airport and kind of intimidating, especially if you've never been there before like me. So we're running through there trying to make it to the gate, and we get there and it's just crowded because it wasn't just our flight being canceled. There was several other flights that have been canceled at the same time, so there was people everywhere. And once we made it to the gate, it was very nice feeling, but luckily they delayed that flight like 25 minutes or something, so that really helped us a lot. When we got there, it wasn't so stressful because that one actually got delayed, but at the same time they delayed it, you just came from a few delays and a canceled flight, so you was about almost scared that that one was going to get canceled also. But once we made it on the plane and we started taxiing out on to the, you know, to take off, I guess because all the cancellations, there was a hugely long line. I remember the pilot making an announcement. He said, we will try to get you to Munich as fast as possible. I know some of you might have connecting flights. We will be late because the taxiway was just full of planes. So we might have waited, I'm gonna say close to an hour. I'm not being specific, but it was about an hour, I think, of waiting your turn in line with other planes to be able to take off. And that was absolutely nuts. But all in all, we finally took off. It was a wonderful flight as usual. Flying over, it was a great time. Got a little shut-eye in, ate some food. It was really a great experience. All the flying itself, once we was on the plane on this trip, was first class. It was great. It was so much fun, and a really fun thing. At the end of this flight, what are we doing? We're landing in Munich. And then now I'm going to tell you what happened there, because it really shocked me when we landed in Munich what was waiting on us. Alright, so now at this point in our travels, we have made it all the way to Munich, Germany. Very exciting. I've been here in the past. I know we're almost there now. We're probably only maybe an hour away or so, hour and a half. Now, normally the flight from Munich to Nuremberg is about a 20-minute flight. It's a very short flight, does not take very long at all. And really getting excited because I feel like, okay, we've made it, right? Well, when we start going through our bags, we're looking for our ticket to make it to our gate for our next flight. And something that we noticed about the ticket that we received from Lufthansa is this is not a flight. This is a bus ride from Munich, Germany to Nuremberg. So we quickly made it to Lufthansa and to the desk for a little bit, like a help desk, and we talked to them about it. And the young lady behind the desk was like, oh yeah, we don't fly from Munich to Nuremberg. Like we don't do that. And they're like, yeah, we used to do it all the time. They was like, it's been a long time. And you know, it has been 5 years since we've flown over there, so things do change after the craziness that was 2020 here in the world. And so no more do you have a flight with Lufthansa from Munich, Germany to Nuremberg. So now we have to go find out where this bus station is at the airport. And we had like an hour and a half, I think, wait roughly, give or take, to go get on this said bus. And then we're taking, instead of a 20-minute flight, or 30 minutes, give or take, 20 to 30-minute flight, it's going to be about a 2 hour and 15, 2 hour and 30-minute bus ride along the countryside in Germany. So that was crazy. And the reason it's so crazy, it's not that taking a bus is a bad thing. It's just when you're prepared to fly mentally, you're prepared to be at some place at a certain time, because my wife's aunt is going to be at the airport to pick us up. You have to get in touch with her now and change her schedule, which we had to do. And then we had to figure out, like, nobody knew in Nuremberg where this bus is going to drop us off. We had to ask probably 3 people before we could get a straight answer. And that woman was really good to us. She works at Lufthansa, and she actually gave us a little printout, a map of Nuremberg Airport, and circled it where we was going to get off the bus, and then we could give my wife's aunt that information. So that was just a curveball. Mind you, when all this started and we booked all this flying, we paid to fly. We didn't pay to be on a bus. We paid to fly. But I guess the way they look at it is, you paid to get from this point to this point, and we got you there. So that was definitely a curveball. So we ended up getting on the bus. I slept on the bus. I was so stressed out and just done at that point. And I just rest my eyeballs. I think my wife snoozed a little bit too on the bus, but it was a long bus ride. So we finally make it into Nuremberg, and her aunt picked us up, and we finally made it to our destination almost 6 hours later than we originally supposed to be there. But the thing is, if my wife wouldn't have took it upon herself to talk to Lufthansa to rebook stuff as things were canceling, it would have been a day later. It would have been, you never know when you would have got there. So that's the thing you got to think about when you're flying. Always have that contingency plan of like, oh, if this happens, I have this information. I know where to go to do a chat or call a number to get in touch with somebody, to be able to make changes on the fly. Because if you think you're going to always do it at the airport, you would be wrong, because it's so difficult. When we was in Munich, you ought to seen the line for Lufthansa, their help desk, their desk up there. They have multiple desks, you know, that's like one of their home hubs. And the line was crazy. I bet that line was 2 hours long. I stood in that line myself. When we got there and we found out we was going to be on a bus, I stood in the line when my wife got on her phone and started using the chat service. You know, I stood in line for 45 minutes, and I bet I didn't move 20, 30 feet. And this line was long. I mean, it was like probably close to a football field, 100 yards through the airport. It was insanity, twisting and winding around. It was absolutely chaos. So just give you a little heads up on that. Always have that contingency plan, and you know, it'll pay off in the end. All right, so we made it to Nuremberg, and the bus ride, you know, took a nap on there. But one thing it was missing from all this stuff is our bags. Our bags did not make the flight. We figured that out once we got there. They never got on the plane and left. Our bags are still in Newark, in other words. Even though someone told us that, yeah, your bags have been checked, come on up to the gate, that would have been incorrect. So that was a bad problem. So the rest of the time while we're in Germany over the next week, we never had our luggage. And we never really heard anything until my wife actually called them a few days later. I think our bags finally made it to, it did make it to Munich, and then it went like from Munich to Frankfurt, and then to Nuremberg. It finally made it to Nuremberg the day before we come home. The day before we fly back out to the United States is when the bag showed up. And they had a whole day to deliver it to our hotel, which they supposed to do, and they did not do that. No, they didn't do that. They didn't. I mean, we was probably less than an hour away from the Nuremberg airport in the town we was in, and they never did bring our bags. So that kind of sucks. So we didn't really fret about that too much, because you know, we was able to wash our clothes while we were there at my aunt's. We did both kind of buy an extra outfit while we was there, which honestly we was probably going to do that anyway. When you travel, you like to buy t-shirts and maybe something, but all in all, we was like, well, we're going to Nuremberg tomorrow to get on the, you know, to get on a flight to go to Frankfurt to come back home, right? Yeah. So it is what it is. We'll get our bags when we get there. All right, so now it is time for travel home day. So we wake up extra early that morning to travel home. We're going to Nuremberg Airport, flying from there to Frankfurt. Our flight leaves Nuremberg at 11:25 a.m. So we got up a little extra early. We eat breakfast there at the hotel. Everything went good. Feeling really excited to get back home to the United States. And all of a sudden we received a text at 7:40 a.m. that morning. Probably about 20, we were probably leaving to drive to Nuremberg within the next 30 minutes. Her aunt's coming to pick us up and we're going to take off and we're going to Nuremberg. But at 7:40 a.m. we get a text and it says, your Lufthansa flight to Frankfurt, Germany, I kid you not, has been canceled. And you will be rebooked free of charge tomorrow. Tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. These people have no control over what's going on. All the flights we have taken have been canceled and delayed, and just, we changed them to get there on time. They didn't. They was going to get us there practically days later if we would have just did it the way they wanted, you know. It was horrible. So she got on the chat service and got it changed, and now they said, she said like, hey, is there any flights leaving Munich? Because there was nothing going out of Nuremberg going to Frankfurt. They canceled it and that was it. And it was just like, God, I cannot believe this. And so we ended up getting on the phone, or my wife did, and talked to them and the chat service and stuff, and ended up getting one like, can you make Munich? We got a flight going out of Munich today to travel to Washington, not Newark, but Washington. And then from Washington, we can get you to Charlotte. And we're like, whatever. So we talked to her aunt and we said, hey, would you mind driving us to Munich? Because there's no bus, there's no nothing, we can't do any of that. So she was a lovely enough person and did that for us. She drove us, you know, 164 kilometers, somewhere she don't ever go. She just normally, you gotta think, you know, she just normally stays around her little town there and drives to work. And she drove us 164 kilometers, which is equal to about 102 miles, which if you know, if you ever drive the highways, that's roughly an hour and a half to hour and 45-minute drive. So she had to drive us all the way down there, changed her plans for the day big time, because she's got to drive back after that. And we hit all kinds of traffic on the Autobahn. There was some stop stuff, so probably took us closer to 2 hours to get there. And then she hung out with us while we was getting our, you know, our stuff checked in, and spent a little time with us to make sure, you know, we was sent off and we were actually getting on a plane, because she didn't want to drive home and something happened. She didn't want to stay in overnight in a freaking airport, you know. And so that's kind of how that went. So now we end up changing it. We're going to Munich, and then we're going to fly to Washington, D.C. instead of Frankfurt. More changes. It was just crazy. So now that we've made it to the Munich airport, and we get all checked in and everything there, and we did get our baggage. We got our, we did have to drive to Nuremberg anyway, even though we wasn't flying out of Nuremberg. Remember, our bag's at Nuremberg. That's where it showed up the day before. So we had to go back and still retrieve our bag and lost luggage at Nuremberg. And then from Nuremberg, then we had to drive, you know, the hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes back to Munich, Germany. And then we had to check that bag back in, and I was like, I'll see you later, buddy. You know, I don't know if I'm ever gonna see you again after this crazy trip. But yeah, that's kind of how that went up until that point. Okay, so once we make it to Munich and got checked in and everything, they gave us a boarding time for a flight and all that good stuff, and it was like around 5 o'clock that evening, I believe. So a little bit later in the day for sure. And it was about, I don't know, maybe about 30 or 45 minutes before we are supposedly going to start boarding this plane that was there. We could see like the people, the workers working on it, fueling it up and everything. And I'm like, yay, we're finally here, we're good to go. And then they make another announcement like, oh, we're sorry, this flight's going to be delayed momentarily due to the pilot is not here, and the pilot is sick and he ain't gonna be able to make the flight. So they're having to call a backup pilot that will take the flight. So we had to wait a little extra time, maybe an extra 30 or 45 minutes for that pilot to actually show up, which that's a good thing. We want people healthy when they're flying you anywhere, especially across a large ocean like the Atlantic Ocean. You want all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, right? So finally, after all that, they finally boarded us and we were able to come back, and it was a great flight to Dulles Airport, and it really was a great flight. I had so much fun on that flight, watch some movies, eat some food, and just pass the time. And I was just happy, just thankful that I'm on a flight and I'm going home. That was just such a great feeling. So we landed in Dulles. Everything went really smooth there. There was a lot of people. It's very crowded at Dulles Airport. Never been there before neither, but all in all, everything was run really smooth, going through customs. Sometime in Charlotte can just be a pain, but Dulles really got us through very quickly. They had plenty of TSA agents and all that kind of stuff to ask you your questions when you're flying. But everybody was really nice to us, and it was a great experience. And now we just need one more flight to get us back into North Carolina, and that was a United flight from Dulles to Charlotte. Notice I'm saying Charlotte, not Greensboro, because speaking of Charlotte, originally we were flying back Nuremberg, Frankfurt to Newark, and Newark to Greensboro, the same way we supposed to have went when this all started. But even before we left the United States, they had changed our flight. They had canceled a flight. So before the trip started, we received an email saying that the flight from Newark to Greensboro has been canceled. Then they have rebooked us another flight from Newark to Greensboro that leaves at 10 a.m. that morning. Now, if we would have been flying from Frankfurt to Newark, like we was originally, yeah, we wouldn't have landed until later on that evening at 3 o'clock. So my wife had to get in touch with them and say, hey, we're not even going to be there at 10 a.m. We don't even land back in Newark to 3 a.m. So even before this whole fiasco got started, they was already messing us up. They was going to have a flight leaving while we would still be like halfway over the Atlantic. We'd still be flying, you know. So it was an experience, to say the least. But all in all, we made it back to Charlotte. The United flight leaving from Dulles did have a slight little delay. It wasn't long. It was just a few minutes, and they actually announced and talked about that. And but that all worked out really well, because once they got up in the air, they still got us to Charlotte on time, even though we left like a few minutes, I don't know, 10 minutes later than we're supposed to. It's a pretty short flight from Washington to Charlotte, maybe a 50-minute flight or something like that. But they actually gassed it up a little bit up in the air and made up some time and got us there on time. And we really want to tip our hat to United, because they did a good job going from Greensboro to Newark and getting us from you know, Dulles Airport in Washington DC to Charlotte on time. That's what I like, on time. But that's pretty much the gist of my travels. I just wanted to make a vlog to just let you guys know. Always check your emails. Always be prepared to change what you do when you're flying, and always kind of have a contingency plan. Always kind of think ahead, because just stay in time. And you know, the more you talk to people about this type of stuff, you find out very quickly it's not just a one-time experience. There's a lot of people going through this. You know, there is a lot of people. Even one of my co-workers at work told me about his daughter was in Europe flying. She spent like 3 or 4 weeks in June flying with Lufthansa. Once again, I don't know if it's just them or is it a lot of different airlines. You know, they're all part of that Star Alliance thing, so they're all kind of in cahoots. That's why the prices don't change that much, because they're not competing with each other, because they're all in the same group. So you just gotta stay a little bit ahead of them. But as I was saying, my co-worker, his daughter actually went through very similar problems while she was flying, like from France and Germany. She was just kind of touring country to country, and he said they had all kinds of problems. Their luggage got lost. They didn't see their stuff for like 3 days, and they was over there for like a month. So it was very frightening for them, seeing that I think that was their first European vacation experience. So you got to keep all that stuff in mind when you're traveling these days. Really, you got to kind of work for yourself, because I don't know how much these airlines, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's happening in this traveling thing. But yeah, I just wanted to share this whole experience with you, and hopefully if anybody sees this that's traveling soon, this might help you plan ahead a little bit, especially if you're doing checked baggage. Definitely, man, have you a good carry-on with some extra clothes in it if you don't know to do that, because it could really help you out down the road. All right, my friends, that will pretty much conclude my video today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to my experience. That's what this channel has always been about. I normally take you guys on my travel experiences and things like that, and I really had to think about it. I've been back several days now, in about 5 or 6 days, and I had time to kind of decompress and kind of think about how I wanted to do this. Originally, I filmed my entire experience flying over, what it was like and what I ate and did all that stuff, but I just had such a bad taste in my mouth. I was like just so disgusted with everything that happened, because it took away from some of the joy from your whole trip. You know, you spend all this money to go do this thing, and then in the travel, it's what puts a frown on your face some. You just couldn't, I mean, when you're waiting every day on luggage, it's kind of hard to be calm and have fun, and you know, because that's in the back of your head the whole time we're doing all this stuff. And I did film a lot of, you know, quite a few videos while I was over there, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking about your luggage, you're thinking about the travel home. I mean, it's just all kinds of stuff going through your head, like, you know, and it kind of takes away from your enjoyment. And really the main reason why I decided to end up making the video, I talked to my wife about it, and it was like, this would be a great thing to show people who are thinking about traveling internationally or long distances where you're going to be packing luggage. It's got to be checked. Always have that carry-on bag and have a few 3 days at least of clothes in, a couple outfits or something to get you through those type of moments. If you can only do carry-on, I would do so. I would love to find a way just to do 2 carry-on bags and just kind of roll with it like that instead of doing 1 big bag. But you know, when we fly that far away, we do want to bring back souvenirs for family, my mother and stuff like that, which I was able to bring my mom back a little something. But there was other people I was wanting to just bring some little small things back, but we just didn't have no room. We didn't have no bag with enough room in it to do anything like that. So that was kind of a bummer. You know, we don't go every year to Germany. Every few years we get to go. So when we go, we like to bring back stuff. Candy, they got great chocolate over there. I mean, come on, you know. So that's pretty much it. Definitely always do a carry-on bag with some extra clothes. That is the moral to take from this video when you're international traveling or traveling far enough to where you have to, you know, check a bag. I would definitely always have that carry-on with something in it. All right, my friends, thank you so much. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, please give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Put any comments down below if you've got any questions, or if you want to share some of your flight experiences. Have you ever been through anything like this, you know, during your travels, flying and stuff? I mean, this was just like absolute insanity for us. We've never experienced anything quite like this, to have so many flights canceled and rebooked, and one of them we wasn't even on a flight, we was on a bus. So it was a little bit of everything. So I'm just curious to see what kind of stories you guys have to share, and anybody who's watching this because you're about to fly, definitely be careful out there and stay on top of things and be your own agent. have your phone numbers, have whatever you need by your side, so if stuff happens you can rebook it yourself and get on that chat and talk to these airlines to get, because if we wouldn't have done that, we would have been days late, because they always want to push you back to the following day, and then you got to try to find somewhere to sleep for the night, you know. And if it's due to weather, they ain't going to take care of you. They ain't going to do nothing unless it's something mechanically going on with their plane and they're totally responsible for it. That's the only way they're going to try to take care of you. You're probably going to have to ask them to do that. They're not going to offer it. So all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Rest of the videos from here on out, I'm promising, I'm thinking it's going to be a lot happier. Okay, so thanks again. I'm the Hitchhiking Yeti. All y'all stay safe out there and be good. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you in my next adventure. Thank you. Thank you. It is so good to be back, even if it's mighty stormy out there. We're going to end the vlog the way we begin the vlog. Right there she is. Oh glory.